Go ahead and use a pry tool to go ahead and remove our center cap. Use a 19mm socket to loosen and remove the lug nuts. Remove the wheel and set it aside. We want to go ahead and remove our cotter pin that is going through our upper ball joint castle nut here. Just going to use some pliers. I'm going to try and wiggle this around a little bit. Our cotter pin is not coming out. We're simply going to use some cutters. We're going to snip these. Snip them, we'll break them off. Using our 22mm swivel socket with an extension, we're going to go ahead and loosen this nut on the upper ball joint. I'm going to go ahead and thread this nut on just a couple threads here. Just enough we can see the bolt coming through the castle nut here. Right there. Now at this point here, you have your vehicle supported on jack stands. We recommend using a jack underneath your lower control arm. And what you're going to do is you're going to raise up the jack just so that it touches the control arm. The reason for that is that once we release this upper control arm, the spring for the suspension is going to want to push that lower control arm down. So you're just going to support that lower control arm. We're using our screw jack here, and we're just going to spin that up just to get pressure on that control arm, and that is it. Using a pickle fork, I'm going to go between the ball joint and the knuckle, and we want to go ahead and separate the ball joint from the knuckle. And at this point here, our nut worked as a capture nut to keep that control arm from popping up. We're now going to go ahead and remove that nut using our ratchet. We're going to use a 22mm socket to go ahead and remove the nut on the ball joint. Then we're going to go ahead and use a pry bar to lift up and separate that unit there. Now we're going to go ahead and lower our screw jack here. Do it slowly. You have your tie rod end and your sway bar end link still attached, so it should maintain the stability of all your components here. The only reason why we're lowering our screw jack here is we're going to lower our vehicle to go ahead and work on the upper ball joint itself. Now we have 4 rivets on the top of our ball joint securing this to our factory control arm. We're going to go ahead and use our air chisel to try and work these rivets off. Now we have our rivets here. I'm just going to rivet these or chisel these smooth, and then we'll punch them out from the top side out. Using a punch and a hammer, go ahead and work these through. You can use a wire brush on the top here. We're just going to use a little sanding cookie on our air tool here to clean up the top. Clean off the top of your knuckle. Get any residual grease. Clear off any nuggets of rust. Don't forget the bottom side of where the ball joint is going to come through. You want to clean underneath that as well. Also want to clean up where our new ball joint is going to go in. Check for any burrs of rust, any deformed metal in here. You want to clean this. If you do have to clean it, use a hand file to resurface or just kind of clean up any of the built up rust. Ours looks pretty clean. Now you can go ahead and pop off the rubber boot. It's going to expose your ball joint area. I like to go ahead and add extra grease into our ball joint area. Not only am I going to put it there, I'm going to add some grease to the inside of the boot here as well. Now at this point, what we want to do is I want to go ahead and lower our ball joint into the knuckle. We want to take our boot, slide that up and through. Let's go ahead and start putting our bolts through the top and secure our nuts on the bottom. And we do this for all 4 of the studs going in. Now that we have all 4 of the studs started and the nuts on there, let's go ahead and snug those down. Using an 11mm socket for the bottom nut and a 12mm for the stud itself, I'm going to go ahead and tighten these down. Make sure those are nice and tight. You know, the vehicle is still supported on your jack stands. You're going to go ahead and put your jack under your control arm. This is just going to make it easier. You're going to go ahead and lift up your suspension here. Now, we're not going to lift the vehicle off of your jack stands. We just want to compress that suspension. And what we're going to be doing is bringing this ball joint into the knuckle. And tap that ball joint in and install your washer. You know, pay attention to where the hole is in the ball joint shaft there, because we're going to put a cotter pin in that next. Once you get that nut started, we'll go ahead and tighten that down. Let's go ahead and torque our upper nut here to 61 foot-pounds. Now at this point here, we want to go ahead and line up the notch in our castle nut with the hole on the ball joint stud here. So you don't want to ever loosen this to get that to line up. We're going to go ahead and tighten this up a little bit more to get that to line up. Now you want to take your cotter pin. You're going to feed this through. I'm going to take our lower tab here, bend that down underneath. I'll go ahead and cut off our excess here. Go ahead and install your wheel. Get all of our lug nuts started by hand. Once these are all on, I'm going to go ahead and snug those down. Go ahead and torque our wheels down to 95 foot-pounds. And go ahead and install your center cap by lining up the little ports here with your lug nuts and pop it on.